Incredible 8-year-old girl bravely saves billionaire's daughter from fire. The touching truth revealed. Sophie's laughter danced through the air like a melody, warming even the coldest hearts in their small suburban town. Known as the girl with sunshine in her smile, she filled the booths of her mother's struggling diner with joy, anecdotes, and an uncanny ability to weave the community together. At just 8 years old, she understood people far beyond her years. Raised in a humble family, Sophie spent her days serving pancakes and coffee, brightening the lives of the townsfolk who cherished the diner as their own. Outside the diner, the grand mansion of Mr. Henderson, the local billionaire, loomed large, casting a shadow over the dreams of many. Wealth had created a divide, but to Sophie, everyone had their story, regardless of bank accounts. As she poured syrup onto a stack of pancakes, her little hands moved with purpose and care, hoping to stitch together the tattered fabric of their community. One fateful afternoon, the town was jolted by flames licking the sky, the scent of burnt wood swirling with panic. The mansion erupted in chaos as sirens blared and smoke billowed above. It was like a scene ripped from a movie, but Sophie felt a twist in her gut. A sinking realization struck her heart. Emily, Mr. Henderson's daughter, was trapped inside. In that instant, Sophie's little world shrank down to one thought: she had to help. Without a second thought, Sophie dashed toward the towering inferno, ignoring the gasps of bystanders who watched in horror. "Sophie, no!" someone shouted, but her feet didn't stop. She could hear the sound of her heartbeat in her ears, feel the heat of the flames generating a sense of bravery that belied her age. To her, Emily was simply another girl in need, a sister, a friend. As the fire roared, the townspeople stared in disbelief. Some were struck by admiration, while others clung to judgment rooted deep in class struggle. "What does she think she's doing? She's just a diner girl." A voice echoed among a crowd that couldn't see past their own biases. But Sophie didn't care what they thought. She wasn't in it for accolades, she was living out her own truth. Little did she know that her courageous act would unleash a wave of complicated emotions among neighbors that would forever change their community dynamics. After firefighters battled flames and the smoke began to clear, Sophie emerged, dragging Emily from the ashes, breathless but alive. Relief flooded through the crowd, but so did confusion, resentment mixed with gratitude. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the townsfolk convened for an emergency meeting, emotions bubbled over into heated discussions, contrasting views clashing like the flames that had just threatened to consume them. Some rallied for Sophie, celebrating her bravery, while others remained fixated on class distinctions, questioning the value of one heroic act against the grandeur of wealth. In the thick of it, Sophie stood amidst the chaos, feeling the weight of her small stature against towering judgments and expectations. Would her actions bear meaning in a town torn by economic strife? As she looked around, longing to be recognized not just as the diner girl, but as someone who mattered, she knew she was at the crossroads of understanding something deeply profound about belonging. The crowd parted, but her heart raced as tension simmered, leaving her unsure: would her bravery take root, or would her worth be overshadowed by the very disparities they each lived with? Sophie stood on the edge of the gathering, her small form dwarfed by the adults arguing around her. The clamor of voices felt heavy, thick with doubt and frustration. Each word rang through her like a bell, a striking reminder of the divide that wealth could create. She could sense the eyes upon her, some warm with admiration, others cold and calculating, as if they were weighing her worth. Mr. Henderson's towering figure came into view as he approached, his brow set in a hard line. He was a man used to overcoming challenges, but today, an uncertainty hung around him like the smoke from the fire. He bent slightly, bringing himself closer to her eye level, and searched her gaze. Sophie, he started, his voice softer than she expected, tinged with gratitude and concern. What you did today, it was truly remarkable. But it's dangerous to rush into a place like that. You shouldn't have risked yourself. Sophie felt her cheeks burn. His words, though cloaked in appreciation, stung like a wasp. But she needed help, she replied, her voice small but steady. I couldn't just stand there and do nothing. Emily is my friend. Mr. Henderson sighed, a blend of relief and sorrow flickering in his eyes. And now everyone sees you, Sophie, not just as the diner girl, but as a girl who saved my daughter. He straightened, casting a glance at the crowd that still lingered in debate. But with that, you may face a heavier burden than you anticipated. As he walked away, Sophie felt a well of confusion rise within her. She hadn't meant to draw attention to herself. She only wanted to help. Amidst the clashing voices, a thought unsettled her. Was being labeled a hero worth the weight of judgment from the very people she aimed to unite? From the back of the crowd, Mrs. Pine, a regular at the diner, spoke up. She might not be from money, but look at her heart. To risk her life for Emily, that's the kind of spirit this town needs. Murmurs of agreement bounced around, yet they didn't drown out the dissent. But what if it teaches our kids that recklessness is bravery? A man countered, his arms crossed tightly across his chest. What if it distracts them from the lessons of hard work and privilege? Sophie's heart sank. They were misunderstanding everything. She hadn't done it to prove a point or to make a statement. She simply couldn't let fear keep her from helping someone in trouble. That was the lesson she had learned, not one of wealth or status. The debate swirled anew, wrapping around her like an unwelcome shroud. Still, a flicker of hope lingered in her heart. If she could just show them that beyond money and territory, there was a deeper connection waiting to flourish. Days turned into weeks, and the incident faded from the headlines, but its echo remained in Sophie's mind. She visited Emily, who now had a sparkle in her eyes that even the clouds couldn't dim. Each visit grew their bond stronger, and the townsfolk began to notice the friendship blossoming before their eyes. As she served lunch in the diner, Sophie heard whispers of thanks and glimpses of admiration. Somehow, she was becoming part of the community she loved. But the divide still hung in the air, a silent challenge yet to be faced. The turning point came when Mr. Henderson reached out, inviting her to his mansion for a community gathering. The town would come together like never before. Sophie felt her breath quicken. Would she still be valued? Would they see her for who she was? The night of the event arrived with anticipation crackling in the air. Sophie adjusted the dress her mother had borrowed for her, unsure of what to expect. She stepped out into the night, a sense of both excitement and trepidation gnawing at her. The moment she stepped into the mansion, a wave of chatter and laughter washed over her, but one question lingered: would her courage be enough to bridge the gap between their worlds? As her heart raced with the unknown ahead, Sophie took a deep breath. She could feel the tides about to shift. The real test was just beginning. Sophie stood at the entrance of the grand hall, her heart pounding like a drum against her ribcage. The chandeliers sparkled above her, casting a warm glow over the elegant crowd. Each voice buzzed with laughter, and yet, as she moved forward, she felt like an outsider in a world wrapped in silk and diamonds. Henderson caught her eye again, waving her over with an encouraging smile. He looked different here, relaxed among the people he felt at home with. Come, Sophie. I'd like you to meet some of my friends, he said, guiding her into the flow of conversation. They seemed interested in her story, their eyes sparkling with appreciation and intrigue, but anxiety gripped her. Would they really care? Or was she just a curiosity, an anomaly to serve their evening's entertainment? She pressed her lips together, unsure of how to navigate this world. Hello there, a tall woman said, her voice high and melodic. She extended a hand. I've heard so much about your bravery. Thank you, Sophie stammered, her cheeks flushing slightly. The warmth of the woman's smile was inviting, but the shadows of judgment still lingered at the edges of Sophie's mind. As they talked, Sophie felt herself easing into the conversation, a little charm flickering to life. She shared about the trip to the diner as a little girl with her mother, recounting how the smell of pies and fresh coffee had always been her comfort. The adults nodded, leaning in, and for a moment, the room felt less intimidating, yet, as she glanced around, she sensed the undercurrents of division still running beneath the surface. A few of the faces seemed skeptical, their expressions shifting when they learned where she came from. One woman narrowed her eyes and whispered to her companion, drawing her attention. The hurt pricked at Sophie, but determination surged within her. "Let us show them," Sophie thought. "Let us show them there's more to me than just being the diner girl." As the evening progressed, Mr. Henderson raised his glass, signaling the crowd's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we honor bravery, kindness, and the spirit of our community." His words washed over her, a gentle tide. The person who embodies these qualities most goes by the name Sophie. "Come forward, my young hero." Sophie's stomach twisted as she stepped forward, feeling the weight of everyone's gaze upon her. The applause thundered in her ears, drowning out her insecurities. They clapped for her, showering her with affection, and for a fleeting moment, she felt seen not just for her actions, but for who she was becoming. "Thank you," she said, her voice tremulous yet resolute. "I just wanted to help a friend. We all need each other. That's what matters, right?" In that instant, the crowd fell silent. She had broken through the thick air of hesitation hanging around them. A flicker of something different passed through the crowd, a shared understanding blossoming in the spacious room. Just then, the doors swung open and a man stepped in, wearing an expression of panic. The room turned to him, curiosity piqued. "We need help. There's been an accident at the old mill," he shouted, breathless. Sophie's heart dropped. This was it. This could be her moment to stand for more than herself, to show she meant every word she had said. The warmth and applause of the crowd faded, replaced by the urgent call for action. Suddenly everything was clicking into place. She could feel her purpose ignite a fierce determination to rise beyond youthful labels and stereotypes. "Let us go," she shouted, her spirit igniting the air around her. But would the others follow her lead? Would they see past their fears and judgments? As she turned to face the crowd, anticipation chilling her spine, she could only hope the spark she had lit in them would lead to a flame. Would they truly embrace the strength of community tonight, or would their differences hold them back? Sophie's heart raced as she faced the assembly of people, their eyes wide with uncertainty. She allowed her own fears to dissolve into the urgency of the moment. The air crackled with tension, each heartbeat urging her to take the lead. "We can't just stand here," she called out, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling in her chest. "We need to help." For a split second, there was silence. Then, Mr. Henderson took a step forward, his expression shifting from shock to resolve. "Sophie's right. Let us go. We need to make sure everyone is safe," he said, clapping his hands once to gather attention. Some of the guests exchanged glances, a few hesitant whispers rising up like tiny waves on a shore. But the moment hung in the air, charged with a renewed purpose. One by one, others began to move. An elderly man tucked his cane under his arm, while a mother gathered her children close, determination etched on her face. As they filed toward the exit, Sophie caught a glimpse of that critical look, the understanding of shared humanity beneath the fancy gowns and polished shoes. Someone beside her was fumbling with a coat, another checking their phone. They were ready to reach beyond themselves. The group rushed outside. The night was crisp, an undercurrent of dread lacing the cool air. Sophie felt the weight of the approaching responsibility. Each step toward the old mill felt heavier, but with every footfall, her resolve deepened. She wasn't just the diner girl anymore. She was a part of something larger, a bond formed here, in the face of urgency. "We need to hurry," she urged, a sense of urgency pushing her forward. The man who had entered the hall looked as if he had run a marathon. They said there were still people inside. The distant wail of sirens approached, cutting through the stillness. The group moved faster now, the adrenaline surging in their veins. As they dashed down the path leading to the mill, flashes of heat licked at Sophie's senses. The structure loomed ahead, shadows dancing against the flames that flickered like a hungry beast feeding on the wood. Sophie halted, her stomach twisting painfully. Memories of difficult days flashed through her mind, time spent feeling different, disconnected. But as she surveyed the group around her, something shifted. This is our chance to show that we're more than perceptions, she thought fiercely. We can be helpers. Who's in there? Sophie shouted to the man beside her, urgency ringing in her voice. There are workers in the back. They didn't make it out when the fire started. He answered, panic tightening his brow. Fear gripped her, but so did determination. We can't let anyone be left behind, she declared, each of her words drumming authority, igniting a collective spirit. We need to spread out, search for anyone who might still be trapped. The crowd of guests began to scatter, forming smaller groups, moving toward the entrances and broken windows that spewed smoke into the night sky. Sophie led a few brave souls around to the side of the mill, her feet steady despite the uncertainty swirling in the air. As they poked through debris and smoke, her heart thudded against her rib cage, each breath a reminder of the lives at stake. Would they find someone in time? Would her heart and courage be enough to make a difference? And just as they rounded a corner, someone cried out, "Over here." Sophie's stomach flipped. Hope rushed in, followed closely by the immense weight of dread. What would they face inside? What horrors awaited them? Standing at the threshold, hand trembling against the door, her resolve began to waver, but she remembered the faces of everyone behind her. It was their moment to rise as a community, to blend their strengths as individuals into a force of compassion. Could she push through her own fears for others? Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the dark, smoke-filled void, calling out desperately, "Hello? Is anyone there?" The echo of her voice seemed to bounce around the shadows, drawing out secrets hidden in the chaos. Would anyone answer her call for help? In that charged silence, Sophie knew that the answer would change everything. Sophie's heart thundered in her chest as she stepped deeper into the blaze's embrace, the heat washing over her like a wave of fire. The acrid smoke stung her eyes, forcing tears that blurred her vision, but she blinked them away, determined to focus. "Is anyone there?" she shouted again, voice slicing through the smoke. She strained to listen, hoping for a response, any sign that there were souls still clinging to life inside this chaos. A cough erupted somewhere ahead, raspy and weak. Relief surged through her, but it was brief. That cough was a harbinger of struggle. "We're coming!" Sophie shouted, her body moving despite the fear that clawed at her mind. "Stay where you are." The shadowy outlines of her companions struggled through the haze, faces marked by the resolve spreading in their hearts. She motioned for the others to spread out farther inside. "We have to find them fast," Sophie urged, and even as she spoke, doubt whispered in her mind. Could they really do this? With each step, the weight of the smoky air grew thicker, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. She recalled the stories of heroes, those who bravely charged into danger, risking everything for others. What if this is my moment? She thought. Sophie turned a corner and found a door partially ajar, a flicker of light seeping through the crack. She rushed toward it, pushing the door open. The glimpse inside sent a jolt of fear zipping through her imagination. A figure huddled against the far wall, covered in sheets of soot, while flames licked just outside the doorway. "Help!" The voice was faint, trembling. "Please, I can't move." Sophie pressed forward, waving her hands to clear the air. "Stay calm. I'm here. We're here to help you." She glanced back at her friends. They have regrouped, along with a few others, signaling determination. Mr. Henderson made eye contact with her, a nod of reassurance. They would be a team, and together, they could conquer the fear. In that blink of a moment, Sophie felt warmth encircle her heart, a rush of courage strengthening her resolve. She took several strong steps forward, breathing in short gasps through her mouth to stay lightheaded. The figure was now closer, visibly shaken, their silhouette trembling against the fire's illumination. "Just a little closer," she urged, reaching out to help. The figure came into focus, a young girl, no older than 8, with panic in her wide eyes. "I'm so scared. I can't see. I can't move." Sophie knelt down, the floor scorching beneath her. "It's okay. I'm here. My name is Sophie, and we're going to get you out. Can you crawl towards me?" The girl nodded, her small body quaking as she struggled to push herself upright. Fear shot through Sophie like a jolt of electricity. She couldn't let her freeze up in that moment. "Just take it slow. You're so brave. We're right here with you." As the girl crawled toward her, Sophie felt the stir of voices behind her, lending strength to the moment. The heat intensified, the flames dancing dangerously close. Time seemed to twist and warp, and every frantic second felt like an eternity. She could sense the urgent breaths of her friends behind her, each ready to offer support. Finally, the girl reached out for Sophie's hand, and when their fingers intertwined, a vivid thrill of victory ignited Sophie's spirit. "I've got you!" Sophie exclaimed, pulling her gently, yet firmly, toward the door. But the ground beneath her began to tremble. Sophie's pulse quickened. "We need to go. Now." Just as they began to retreat, the crumbling sound of wood splintering echoed. A beam above them shuddered dangerously. Would they make it out in time? With one final push and the help of her companions, they rushed toward the exit, hearts racing like thunder, fueling the fire of desperation. As they stumbled outside into the fresh air, the cacophony of sirens greeted them like a choir of hope. Sophie turned back, lungs burning, chest heaving as relief washed over her. But when she looked down at the girl in her arms, she realized the escape was just the beginning. What if there are more? Sophie thought, a new awareness dawning. Guilt pricked at her heart. What did it mean to be a hero? They had just stepped into safety, but was it enough? She had to know who else was left behind in that daunting inferno. As the last glimmers of fire flickered behind her into the night, Sophie knew this was not simply a rescue. It was a call to fight harder, stand taller. Would she gather her courage once more and face the flames to help? Sophie's heart raced as she staggered away from the building, adrenaline flooding her veins. She cradled the little girl tightly in her arms, her small form still trembling as the sirens wailed in the distance. Each blast echoed in Sophie's ears like a reminder that they had escaped, but the weight of uncertainty pressed against her chest. "Are you okay?" Sophie asked, brushing soot from the girl's cheek with her thumb. The girl's eyes, wide and filled with fear, began to soften, revealing a flicker of trust. I think so," the girl stuttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "But my mom, I can't find her." Sophie's stomach dropped. She glanced back at the fire-ridden building, now surrounded by firefighters who began to work quickly, battling the flames that still danced along the walls. Her companions stood nearby, their expressions a mix of relief and concern. "Please, we have to help them find her," Sophie insisted, feeling a swell of courage rise inside her again. The regret of leaving anyone behind gnawed at her stomach. A firefighter approached them, a sturdy man with soot stains on his helmet and determination in his eyes. "Hey there, young lady," he said gently, kneeling down to speak with the girl. "Can you tell me where your mom might be?" The girl's face scrunched up, tears brimming. "I don't know. She was with me." We were playing. Her voice tripped over the words, and Sophie felt the weight of what was at stake. "Listen," the firefighter said, his voice steady. "I'm going back inside, and I promise you, we're going to find her. You did just great coming out here. You're so strong." Sophie envied the confidence in his tone. "Can I go in with you?" She blurted out without thinking. The urgency in her heart drowned out the fears that had been rising within her. The firefighter hesitated, taking a moment to assess the resolve in her eyes. "It's dangerous in there, but if you really feel you can help." "I can." Sophie interrupted, conviction hardening her resolve. She was no longer just a girl caught in the chaos, she was a part of something greater, and she wouldn't stand on the sideline. Minutes later, she was back in the thick of smoke, the heat wrapping around her like an unyielding barrier. She could hear the muffled shouts of others, the roar of flames, but she pressed deeper inside, masking her fear with focused determination. "Mom!" The girl's voice ghosted through her mind. It became an echo that propelled Sophie forward. She spotted more doors lining the hallway, some ajar, others closed tight. She called out as she pushed open doors, "Is anyone in here?" The more she searched, the more frantic her heart raced. It struck her the profound weight of heroism didn't just mean courage, it was also about compassion, the fight for others. "I won't let you down," she whispered to herself, the promise wrapping around her heart as warmth clung to her words. Just then, a choked cry fell upon her ears, and Sophie's heart surged with hope. She sprinted toward the sound, throwing open one last door. "Is anyone here?" She was met with a desperate gasp, and as her eyes adjusted, she saw a woman crumpled against the wall, panic etched across her features. Sophie's breath hitched. "Are you hurt?" she asked, concern filling her voice, but the woman shook her head, tears falling. "I was looking for my daughter." "Your daughter? Is she here?" "Outside. She's with someone." The woman scrambled to her feet, the fear palpable in her voice. "Let us get you out," Sophie urged, the fire crackling behind them, growing more fierce with every passing second. As they turned to leave, Sophie's mind raced with the realization the journey didn't end here. The flames weren't just an obstacle, they were also a reminder of how precious life was, how quickly it could slip through their fingers. Would she find the strength to face the heat one more time, not just for herself, but for every soul that needed saving? With the woman at her side, they hurried down the hallway towards the exit. They had fought their way through flames already, but which hero would Sophie choose to be next? Sophie pushed through the haze, the heat bearing down like a relentless weight on her shoulders. She could barely see, smoke swirling around them, making each breath a struggle. The woman beside her moved with urgency, her eyes darting towards each flickering shadow, hoping for a glimpse of her daughter. "Stay close," Sophie called out, her voice hoarse. The woman nodded, her fear giving way to determination as they pushed through the smoke-filled corridor. With each step, the acrid scent of burning wood filled Sophie's nostrils, and panic threatened to rise within her. "Mom! Mom!" The woman's voice broke through the chaos, and Sophie's heart clenched. "Let us keep going. We have to get outside," Sophie urged, her resolve solidifying. Though she felt fear tugging at her edges, she wouldn't let it consume her. This was about more than just survival, it was about hope. Sophie forced the memories of being a child away. The playful days at the park, ice cream melting on warm summer afternoons. But that was not today. Today was about strength. Today was about survival. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed behind them. Flames erupted, the sound like a furious beast awakening, and Sophie felt the heat surge. "Go! Go!" she shouted, urgency coloring her words. The woman stumbled but Sophie grabbed her arm, guiding her toward the exit. They were so close, yet each step felt weighted down by time and despair. As they exited the hallway, they stumbled into a small office area filled with charred furniture, the windows blackened by soot. They had to move. The barrier between the outside world and them felt both close and infinitely far. "Mom?" echoed from somewhere in the gloom. The tone held both hope and desperation. Sophie turned sharply, feeling her own heart race again. "It's her!" she cried out, instinct driving her to follow the sound. "Where?" begged the woman, hope flickering in her eyes as she glanced around, the flames behind them licking hungrily at the air. Over here. I hear her. Sophie dashed toward another door, her pulse pounding in her ears. She pulled it open and gasped. A small girl with dark curls was huddled beneath a desk, her wide eyes filled with fear. Get out, honey. Come on, it's okay. Sophie urged, the words tumbling out as she crouched down to the girl's level. She reached out, her hands steady and inviting. The little girl hesitated, then crawled over, her small hands trembling as she reached for Sophie's. I was scared, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. Me too, Sophie admitted, her voice calming despite the chaos around them. But we're going to be okay. I promise. The woman rushed forward, pulling her daughter into her arms. Relief washed over her like the summer rain. Thank you. Thank you so much. She exclaimed, squeezing her child close. Sophie smiled, her heart swelling. The moment stretched in that space, an outpouring of love and gratitude mixed with smoke. But they couldn't linger, the roar of the fire was growing even louder. Let us go. She urged, leading them back down the crumbling corridor. Running faster now, driven by instinct and the need to protect, they found the nearest exit. The door swung open and fresh air kissed their faces, momentarily drowning out the lingering fear. Sophie felt the sun break through and, as the family stumbled out onto the street, the cheering crowd gathered around them. Sirens blared, but all she could hear was the sound of the little girl's laughter. Sophie! Sophie! Someone called, and she turned to see the firefighter from before, his expression shifting from worry to relief. Did you find her? He asked urgently, scanning the trio before him. Yes. We did. Sophie beamed, feeling a surge of pride interwoven with the lingering fear. Good work, he said, clapping her shoulder. You're incredibly brave. But as the praises washed over her, she felt a twist of something deeper. What about those still inside? Could she really walk away while others faced the blaze? The heroes in her mind battled for dominance again, the warmth of hope colliding with the chill of uncertainty. Is everyone out? She asked, a knot tightening in her chest as she searched the smoke-filled sky above for familiar shapes. Not yet, said the firefighter, his face serious, the urgency returning. Sophie suddenly understood the real challenge was just beginning. Would she face the flames again, not just as the brave girl who saved a child, but also as someone willing to save more? Let me go back, she said, her heart pounding. I can help. But as the firefighter opened his mouth to respond, her words were drowned out by another deafening crack, sending a shudder of horror through the crowd. What would Sophie's next choice be? Time was running out, and the fire was still hungry. Sophie felt herself being pulled in two directions. Her heart was racing not just from her close brush with danger, but from the urgency gnawing at her gut. She looked back at the building, smoke billowing high into the sky like angry fingers reaching out for all those still trapped inside. No. I can help. She insisted, her voice trembling with determination. Stay here. It's too dangerous. The firefighter's tone was firm, but Sophie found a strange kind of strength in his worry. It only fueled her resolve more. What if there are more kids? What if they're scared? She pressed, glancing back at the little girl now held tightly in her mother's arms. The union of their relief filled Sophie with warmth, but she couldn't ignore the fear creeping in. Was it fair to leave without knowing, without at least trying? The firefighter's brow furrowed as he weighed her words, his eyes darting to the burning windows behind them. Time felt suspended. Sophie's heart beat like a drum in her ears, a constant reminder of what was at stake. Wait! The firefighter finally shouted over the raging flames. If you want to go back, you need a mask and I'll need to go with you. You can't go alone. Sophie's heart leaped an opportunity. She nodded eagerly, adrenaline coursing through her. If she could save just one more, it might make all the difference. She watched as he grabbed a mask and handed it to her. "Breathe through this. Keep low. Follow my lead," he instructed, adjusting his helmet and checking his gear. She pulled the mask over her face, feeling the rush of cool air and knowing it was now or never. "Let us do this," Sophie cried, determination radiating from her. "Stay close," he reminded her again, leading her back towards the entrance of the building. The flames roared behind them, a fierce reminder of the chaos that awaited inside. With each step, the heat challenged her, licking at her arms and pressing upon her chest. The firefighter led the way, and she stayed right behind, her little legs moving faster than she thought possible. The smoke thickened, swirling like a ghostly apparition, and her heart raced faster in rhythm with the sounds of crackling fire. They moved past the office area, now completely engulfed in flames. Everything felt surreal. The crying, the panic, the distant cries trapped within the wreckage. Sophie could taste the smoke in the air, bitter and angry. "Where are they?" Sophie whispered, her voice almost lost in the bedlam of the fire. "Keep moving," the firefighter urged, peering into the shadows searching for signs of life. "Hello? Is anyone here?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the debris. Sophie felt a knot in her stomach as silence hung heavily around them. Then, a muffled cry broke through the tumult. Her heart leapt. "Over here!" Sophie yelled, darting toward the sound, forgetting caution completely. She pulled open another door and squinted into the darkness. "Help! Someone help!" The cries grew louder. "Stay right there!" the firefighter called. He followed Sophie into the room, their bodies low to the ground. Sophie spotted a boy, perhaps around her age, huddled behind a toppled bookshelf, his face smeared with soot and fear. Her heart ached for him. "We're here," she shouted, reaching her hand out. "Please." "I can't," he stammered, trembling. "We got you. Just take my hand." Sophie could feel the desperation wrapping itself around her heart, suffocating her. But she pushed through. This wasn't about her fear, it was about lifting others from the flames. As the boy crept forward hesitantly, another crack sent tremors through the floor. "Time's running out," the firefighter urged, his voice sharp and assertive. Sophie reached for the boy just as he grasped her hand. But even in their moment of triumph, the fire sang its wicked song, growing louder, claiming its territory. Would they make it out? In that moment, all Sophie could think was to believe hope the fire might not claim them today. As they turned toward the exit, the temperature surged and a heavy beam gave way, crashing down behind them. "Run!" the firefighter yelled, his voice a lifeline that pulled Sophie and the boy back into the haze. Would they make it out in time? Could Sophie's courage save them all? The roar of the flames grew louder, and Sophie's heart thudded violently in her chest. She tugged the boy closer, feeling the sweaty, trembling grip of his small hand in hers. "Come on. We can make it," she shouted, her voice barely rising above the cacophony of destruction. The firefighter led the way, his every step a calculated decision as he navigated the unbearable heat. With each moment, the air grew heavier, stretched thin with smoke. Sophie forced herself to breathe, keeping low as the firefighter had instructed, the mask giving her just enough air to keep going, but fear gripped her heart. She glanced behind them, the flames clawing closer. Would they reach safety? Doubt pricked at her resolve, but she pushed it away. "We're almost there. Just keep moving," she encouraged the boy, who followed her lead with shaky determination. They turned a corner, the exit in sight, but a wall of flames rushed towards them, angry and consuming. "No! This can't be happening." Sophie felt panic tighten her throat. The firefighter paused, assessing their path. Time stretched as they stood frozen in that moment, an unbearable silence amidst the chaos. "Over here." A voice broke through the thick smoke, belonging to another survivor on the other side of an office door. It was muffled but clear enough to spark hope in Sophie's heart. "Help us. Please. Wait." The firefighter called out sharply. "We can't take a detour, there's no time." His expression was grave, caught between urgency and the reality of their surroundings. "What if there's someone else?" Sophie's voice trembled with the weight of the choice. "What if they're scared?" The firefighter's jaw clenched, his own past decisions flickering across his face. She could see him weighing the risks. His gaze flicked over her, an acknowledgement of her bravery. "We can't leave anyone behind," she insisted, though her heart raced with the fear that they might not make it back out. "All right," he said, the determination grounding his voice. "Stay close, and we'll check. But be quick." They moved towards the door, the heat almost searing. The firefighter pushed it open, revealing a dim-lit room, smoke swirling, blurred shapes shifting in the darkness. "Hello? Anyone here?" He shouted into the heavy air. Silence. And then, a shuffling sound. "Aiden!" Someone cried, a frantic pitch that made Sophie's heart ache. "Is that you? Karen?" A boy emerged from the fog, face streaked with soot, eyes wide with fear. It was another child, and something fierce ignited inside Sophie. "We can't stay here. You have to come with us," she urged, reaching out again. Memories raced through her mind: friends, laughter, home. She wouldn't let fear take any more than it already had. "No. I can't." Aiden sobbed, retreating back into the darkness. "I can't." "Why?" "We need to help you." Sophie persisted, fighting against the rising despair. "She's right," the firefighter declared, stepping forward. "We're not leaving until you're safe." Aiden hesitated, glancing at Sophie, searching for the strength the fire threatened to swallow. He took a deep breath. Sophie squeezed his hand, radiating courage. "We're all stronger together. You can do this." "She's right. I need you." It was Sophie's simple honesty that cracked through Aiden's fear, and he slowly took a step forward. Then, from the walls around, another crash jolted through the building, a reminder of the ticking clock. Would they really make it in time? As they turned to leave, the smoke thickened, and the sound of crackling intensified. There was no more time to waste. "Run!" The firefighter shouted again, urgency fueling his voice as they took off toward the exit, hearts pounding and legs pushing past the wall of flames closing in behind them. Just outside, the world felt 1,000 miles away. The air burned in her lungs as they burst from the building, but they had made it. Yet, as relief washed over her, Sophie's thoughts were still with the others. Side by side with the firefighter, catching their breath, she looked back at the blackened structure that had become a grave of lost hopes. "Who else is in there?" she whispered, feeling dread settle in her stomach. "Anyone who's left," he sighed, pain etched in his expression. "We might still need to go back." A sinking feeling gripped Sophie. The fire wasn't finished. And she suddenly knew, deep inside, that their escape was only the beginning. Sophie stood beside the firefighter, watching as the flames danced angrily behind them, the smoke swirling like a dark cloud of despair. The cheers and sighs of relief from the crowd meant nothing to her now. What mattered was the possibility that others were still trapped inside the flaming mill, their lives hanging by a thread. "Let me go back," Sophie exclaimed, her voice breaking the eerie calm of the aftermath. The adrenaline coursed through her, fueling her determination. She couldn't just turn away. She could still be a hero. "Sophie," the firefighter's voice was steady yet filled with a warning urgency. "It's too dangerous. You need to stay back." The stern look in his eyes told her he wasn't going to yield, but Sophie wasn't finished yet. "If there's anyone left, I won't abandon them. I can help." Her heart raced with the thought of those still needing rescue. She had already faced the fire once. The fear felt distant, overshadowed by her overwhelming sense of responsibility. The firefighter hesitated. A flicker of understanding crossed his face. "All right. If you want to go back, we need to do it smartly. But you must listen to me. No heroics, just focus on getting everyone out safe," he said, prompting her to nod vigorously. With a quick glance towards the mill, he turned, guiding her back into the chaos. The heat wrapped around them like a heated embrace, but Sophie pushed through, every step fueled by hope. "Is anyone here?" The firefighter called, his voice firm as they moved cautiously through the dark haze. Behind them, the cries of urgency rang like a battle drum in her ears. "Help! Please!" came a voice, weak yet piercing through the din of the fire. It was familiar, and Sophie's heart surged at the realization. "Over here!" she shouted, feeling a wild surge of energy as she darted towards the direction of the voice. The firefighter followed closely behind, signaling to remain low. Sophie pushed on, stumbling through clusters of debris, calling out, "We're coming." Soon they found a group of people huddled, trembling in fear. "We thought we were going to die," a woman gasped, her hands shielding the faces of her children. "Thank you for coming back." "There's no time to waste," the firefighter insisted, urgency sharpening his tone. "You have to follow us now." Her heart pounding with determination, Sophie moved through the small crowd, encouraging them, "It's okay. Just stick together, and we'll get out." She felt the spark of something greater than herself. She was not just Sophie the diner girl anymore, she was part of a lifeline. Just as they formed a tight line, a loud cracking echoed behind them, sending panic swirling through everyone. The structure began to groan ominously, the flames drawing nearer, hunger crackling in the air. "Run! Go! Just keep moving!" the firefighter commanded, his voice stern yet encouraging. Sophie grabbed a child's hand, guiding them through the chaos, each heartbeat a reminder of the precious seconds ticking away. They rushed toward the exit, the smoke thickening. "We can do this. Just a little more," Sophie urged, her spirit igniting courage within each person nearby. They didn't turn back, instead staring onward at the glowing light ahead that promised safety. As they burst into fresh air, a wave of relief washed over them. Cheers erupted, the bonds forged in those frantic moments lighting a fire of hope in their hearts. Sophie turned, catching the eye of the firefighter who wore a proud smile. "You did it, kid. You brought them out." But still, she couldn't shake the feeling of something unfinished. What about those left inside? Would her heart ever be full while others still battled the flames? As they stepped back, they turned to see more fire crews pouring into the building, ready to risk everything for the trapped souls still within. The scene played out like a powerful testimony of unity, of courage amidst despair. Sophie felt something change inside herself, an understanding that heroism wasn't just about getting accolades. It was about hope, empathy, and courage to stand up for one another, regardless of social divides. Tears stung her eyes, but this time they were tears of pride, not regret. With each life saved, she saw her community shift. Barriers were starting to break, walls dissolving into the very air they breathed. The once fractured town stood together as a family, a unity born through adversity. "Sophie!" Mr. Henderson called from the edge of the crowd, relief visible in his face. "You're a hero. A true hero." His words washed over her like a warm embrace, recognition swelling her heart. "Thank you," Sophie said, her voice choked with emotion. "We all need each other, that's what matters, right?" The crowd murmured with unison as heads nodded in agreement. Together they had bridged the gap of wealth, fear, and anger, learning that courage comes in many forms and that together, they were strong. As the last embers of the fire flickered in the distance, Sophie knew this was just the beginning of their transformation, a community standing united, ready to rise from the ashes of difference and love each other fiercely. She took a deep breath, and for the first time, it felt like home. "Now, let us keep this momentum going. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire hope and unity. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and spread the joy of compassion. Comment with your feelings about this incredible ending and your thoughts on how we can build stronger communities together. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans know supporting the channel with these actions makes a huge difference.